Hello, everybody, and welcome to an episode of BIM Pure Live. I am your host, Nicolas Catelier. I am an architect, a BIM specialist, and the founder of BIM Pure. If you are watching live today on May 28, 2025, you can type in the chat where you are watching from. Already, I see we have Thomas in the house. We've got Lisa. We've got Esham from Kamloops, BC. So please keep saying where you are watching from. We've got John Sanford from Montana. Krista from Montana as well. So while that's going on, I'll move to the screen. I have a couple of things to mention. So as you might know, we have a membership with BIM Learning content and downloads. And members have been asking for months if we could have a great search that would allow people to see everything that we have included on the website for members. And that's now available. If you go to bimpure.com/explore, it should make its way to the homepage in the coming weeks. We can see all of the content that is currently available in BIMPure, including the courses, the live sessions, the master classes, and you can easily filter to search whatever you want for. You're looking for example, the downloads. You can see everything you can download, the PDF or specific lessons, or even by topic if you want to learn about AI, innovation, landscape, specifically Revit. And of course, you can search, for example, if you want to get more about railings, you can see we have a couple of PDF guides about it, or you can jump straight to the lessons that are part of our basics course for Revit. Or what else? If you're looking for Dynamo, you can see we have live series about it. We have a bunch of Dynamo scripts, we have PDF, and we have specific lessons. So that's a search that includes, if you want to see everything that we have on BIMPure, all learning content, all downloads, that is at bimpure.com/explore. The link is in the video description. And the way that it works, this is available to all BIMPure members. There's only a single price point. You subscribe for a year and get access to everything, all of this content for a year. All right, so make sure to check it out. Who else? And quickly something else. D5 rendering. So as you may know, I'm a longtime fan of Enscape. That's been my favorite rendering tool forever. But recently I was hanging out with Andy of KPF Architects, and he was showing me D5 render, and I was so amazed by it. It's been a long time since rendering tool blew me away like that, and within 1 hour, it was able to create an amazing Revit rendering. So we decided to record a session about it, and we've created a mini course that lasts for about 1 hour with Andy of KPF. And the goal, we take a Revit model that is actually from a reader, Antonio Aramburu, and we transform it. We go through the whole step to go from a Revit model into an amazing looking D5 rendering. It's a really fun app, and it has AI features that are actually helpful, not just flashy, such as creating seamless textures, generating texture maps, or using post-processing styles. You can upload an image and say, can you make rendering lighting in this style? Or even fixing post-processing. You don't even need Photoshop anymore. So that's super fun. And this course specifically is going to be released on June 16. It lasts for about an hour. And as everything on BIMPure, it's included within the membership. So you subscribe, you have access not only to this course, but to all courses, all live events, all downloads. All right, that's it for my today's little pitch. And let's introduce our guests. Today's guest is Peter Johann, the CEO and co-founder at Pirros. And we also have Xander Ellenbogen, architect and senior BIM manager at Clark Nexsen. Hello, Peter. Hello, Xander.
All right. Thanks for having us on.
Yes, thanks for joining us. So today we're going to talk about Pirros. Peter, you're part of the team. You're the co-founder. Xander, you're representing a client, Clark Nexsen, who has been implementing Pirros at the firm successfully. So we're going to hear from your side of the story on why it's actually been helpful. But let's start with Peter, if you want to show us. I'm curious about the overall vision, why you decided to create this product. And I guess, I'm sure a lot of people in the audience are wondering, okay, I'm already using UNIFI, already using Content Catalog. What's the difference? That's number one. When I talk about this, that's number one question I get. I'm sure it's the same thing for you. So I can actually switch to your screen and you can show us the vision for it.
Absolutely. And I have a slide kind of going into content management systems, so I'll make sure to touch on that. But yeah, we try to position ourselves as not competing with content management systems. Most of our clients actually have a content management system in our platform in tandem. We kind of view it more as a family management tool, better for that type of content. We're focused on detailing. There's a lot we can do with detailing, which we'll show you today, that content management systems can't do because they're not built for detailing. But backing up a little bit, kind of just laying the foundation of why our platform even exists. Um, we kind of noticed that there was a really big problem in the industry, and this happens at most, architecture and engineering firms that do ground up construction. It's going back to past projects for details, and there's a lot of issues with this workflow that we noticed. First, on just the detailed production side, right? It's an inefficient and unreliable process. It requires a lot of word of mouth and knowledge that's stored in, you know, the senior staff's head of where stuff lives, where the best details live. So uh, we were noticing that this was an issue. People, younger staff or even kind of mid-level staff, having to dig through PDF sets, different projects, have to ask their colleague, get guided in the right direction to find these details, and then also, in terms of extracting them out of Revit models. Having to track down that old Revit project, having to open up that Revit project might take a little bit if it's a large model. God forbid, having to upgrade that Revit model to extract the detail. So all stuff in the detail production workflow, just the workflow of going back to past projects was really inefficient, and then it was also hurting the quality of details. It was leading to destandardization. People were taking different versions of the detail from different projects. Maybe they were old details. Maybe they're out of date in the wrong code cycle. Maybe they weren't up to date. It also led to junior staff. Um, Going to a project that isn't really similar to their current project, copying and pasting a detail, thinking that it's done, and not appropriately modifying it. And so, again, both on the detail production side and on the detail quality side, we were noticing this was not an optimal workflow. And that's where kind of Pirros comes in, is to try to eliminate this completely. Um, Now, the way just to kind of give a little,
Just a quick
go
thing,
ahead.
Peter.
Yeah, yeah,
I realized we didn't talk about your background. You're a structural engineer originally, right?
I was. Yes,
And
I was a structural engineer.
I find that often founders have an itch to scratch. So was it kind of a problem you noticed in your job, and you were wondering why isn't there a solution to fix this issue?
Absolutely. I mean, there was one time I remember it took me like a week to get a good reference detail from a different one of our offices at KPFF. And so, yeah, finding it was a common workflow that we were going through. We had a detail library, but it only contained the standard details. And so we were constantly going back to past projects for details, inefficient, unreliable, and also, yeah, we didn't know if they had mistakes or not. And so absolutely a problem that we had, and we, had we thought we had a solution for it. But kind of going into, again, giving a little bit more framework on what firms are currently doing to combat this problem of people going back to past projects for details, what they're doing without Piros, and what the solutions were in the industry before, we entered the industry. The first and main style is just creating a detail library, right? And most firms are doing this within one Revit container file. You go grab a bunch of the commonly used details, put it into one Revit file, and that's your central place for all of your details. The issue here is just it's a very manual process to build this out. You have to hand pluck details from specific projects, deem it worthy of your library, put it through a long vetting and approving process. There's multiple people involved in this process. And again, it could take a long time, and a lot of times it just doesn't happen, and it only happens with your commonly used details, your standard details. And so even firms that spend a lot of time building out the library, they still don't have, new details. Maybe they should be in the library, but they're just new and they haven't been added yet. Or maybe they're more project specific, client specific. Maybe they're live model details and people want to reference them. And so there's still this need to go back to past projects, even if you have a detail library and a container file. And then, yeah, the other place or the other solution for detail management is, instead of putting your details in a container file, you can put it in a content management system. But this doesn't help with any of the issues that we see with a container file. It's still the same set of details. It's still a manual process to build out, if not more manual. And it's limited to the details that you have, determined are worthy of the library and hand plucked from past projects. And so, uh, what Pirros kind of comes in, it takes a different approach to detail management. And so what we're going to do is we want to eliminate this manual effort to get details into the library, because this was limiting it to just, again, a subset of your details, and people still feel the urge to go back to past projects when they go through your library and they don't find what they're looking for. And so with Pirros, what we do is we automate this process for the entry of information. And so from day one, we're going to be able to get all of your detailing information into our platform. Now, some of this, we're going to upload your library and all your vetted and approved details. And then we're also going to archive a group of relevant projects, and we're going to clearly differentiate them. So, when you come to our database, you'll know which details have been vetted and approved and are up to date. You'll know which details are, maybe haven't gone through that process yet. But at a baseline, we'll have everything in one spot. And again, when people are referencing them, they kind of know what they're using, if it's been vetted, if it's not. And then what we're going to do is create a controlled environment and paper trail for reusing the unvetted content. So for older projects, or maybe all projects, different firms approach this different ways. You can set these projects for reference only. Now you have a little bit more control over who's using what. You can guide people to the right details within our platform, and we'll get more into this when we dive into the demo. And then a really big part of this is creating an automatic feedback loop and streamlining the process to vet and approve more details. So we still want those high quality details, the details that are in our drawing standards, in our Revit standards, and up to date. And because we're archiving your projects in our platform, we can, our software is built to figure out which details make sense to vet and approve and put in the library, and we can streamline the process through our software. And so different firms use our platform in different ways. That's also what's great about our platform, is that it kind of caters to both ends. Some firms don't have any time for detail management. Maybe you're a smaller shop, and right now it's mostly going back to past projects. You put together a little bit of a detail library, but you just don't have the bandwidth and the staff to spend a bunch of time on detail management. And you can just use our platform to get everything in one place and get the efficiency gains, right? Without having to spend all this time vetting and improving details and curating this library. We can get everything in one place from day one. And it's really going to help provide efficient and reliable access to your detailing conditions and streamline your detailed production process. But then we also cater to firms that maybe want to, prioritize detail management, have time and bandwidth, and have staff, have QA/QC team that can vet details. And what we can do with those firms is, again, we can limit the amount of details that are coming from the unvetted section or coming from past projects, if you will. And then we can really streamline the process to get as many of your standard details and your commonly used details vetted and approved and in the vetted section of our library. So it really caters to both types of firms. And again, like, a use case that we see, maybe a firm with no library. Hey, let's upload all your projects, and now you can access everything in one place. You can search across all your projects, streamlines the detailed production process. This use case that I'm showing on the screen here, maybe you're a firm that has a mid-sized detail library. You have 300 details in your library. Currently, if we were to analyze it, 30% of the details are coming from your library. The vetted, and then 70% of details, or the other 70%, you're having to redraft or grab from past projects. When we implement Pirros from day one, 100% of the details will come from the database, right? So you're no longer going to different places, redrafting stuff that maybe has already been done before. And then over time, you can use our tooling so that, after a year, you've grown that vetted section, and now more details are coming from the vetted section within our library.
So
And then
I think if I can add,
Yeah.
I'm implementing content catalog with a client right now, and part of the job is you kind of have to prep the content, right? To clean it up, make sure it's perfect before it goes to content catalog or UNIFI or whatever you're using. But what you're saying is that, no, you can just upload your stuff, start using Pirros right away, and then slowly you can also build your typical detail library, right? So you don't have to wait until everything is perfect.
Yep, and it's also going to really help you build the library, because you can use the Pirros tooling. So yeah, with UNIFI or Content Catalog or any of these content management systems, the library curation process is done outside, right? You have to be the one, you have to create a process, you have to go and grab the details from your projects, figure out which ones aren't in your projects, figure out which one's the best. All of this work is done outside versus with our platform, it's done in our software and we streamline, as many steps of the process as we can. So getting to that 60% is much more realistic and would take much less time than it would without our software. And then the next kind of use case that I'll show is potentially you're a firm with a larger library, right? And you really prioritize, hey, we don't want people grabbing unvetted content. Maybe you start out before Pirros, you have a 700, 800 details in your library, and a good chunk of your details are coming from that library, but it still doesn't capture everything you need. So, maybe another 30% of details are being stolen from past projects. When you implement Pirros, you can, use our tooling, spend a month vetting and approving more details, maybe get that number up to 75%. Coming from the vetted section, but we can put control and guardrails on the unvetted section. So again, we'll go more into it when we get into the demo, but we can really control that no details are coming from past projects and you're only grabbing them from your vetted library, or referencing previous information and redesigning that detail. And then again, over time, you can refine the library more using our tooling, and you can make it to 90%, 100% from your vetted section. I argue that you'll never have every detail vetted and approved. There's constantly new materials coming out. You're constantly producing new details. There's also details that are just more project specific, more client specific. Maybe doesn't make sense to actively manage. But if you really want to prioritize spending a lot of time and effort vetting details, you can get it to that 80, 90%. And the last slide I'll go through, because I think this is a really important part. It's not just the software that we provide. Obviously the software is what's hosting your details, and that's what people are using. But we also have implemented this very robust onboarding and training service. We implemented this a couple of years ago, and this has been a really huge in terms of getting firms to adopt the software, getting users to learn how to use the software, when to use the software. You have a dedicated person from our team. Xander will go more into this about who he's worked with from our team, but you have a dedicated person from our team kind of walking you through every step of the process, helping you build out your library, establish best practices, different things that our other hundreds of customers have done. If you're a similar customer, implementing those best practices, and then doing a full kind of training and rollout. We offer unlimited training sessions, making sure that everyone knows how to use the platform. So this has been a huge part of our offering, and has led to firms adopting our software much quicker. Because if you don't, you could buy the software, it could drive all the value in the world, but you're not getting value from it unless your users are actually using it. So this has been really huge for our clients.
All right, that's for the vision. Did you have anything to present the problem and the overview of Pirros, or we can move into showing a bit of Xander, what Xander has to say?
Yeah, I think we can move into showing what Xander has to say.
Okay. So Xander, I'll let you. Are you the one sharing the screen, or?
Yeah, I can share my screen, and I can give a little bit of background about.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask as well. If you can tell us about you, what's your job, what is Clark Nexsen, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm an architect, senior architect with.
Peter, can you stop sharing? Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah, you can go ahead, Xander. Sorry.
Okay. So I'm a senior architect with Clark Nexsen and a senior BIM manager as well. So I've been an architect for many years, and have moved over to the practice technology department within our firm, and been loving it. And so we use UNIFI as our content management software. And
is it UNIFI? Sorry, is it UNIFI or Content Catalog? You're still using the old version.
We use UNIFI.
Still UNIFI.
For
another year.
Catalog's not good enough. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we've been using them. And Clark Nexsen, we're a multidisciplinary firm. So we have architects and engineers across all disciplines. So we have electrical and mechanical and structural and civil engineers and plumbing engineers. So we have, when we have a job and we have all internal folks working on it, there can be like 6 different Revit models that are all linked together, and they all have their own content and that we have to manage. So it can get fairly complicated. So we had been using, and we still are using, UNIFI for all of our family content, and we were doing detail views with them as well, and it was working great. Um, and we got some feedback that, hey, this isn't as good as it could be. So we started keeping our eyes open to other possibilities, and that's where Peter kind of came in, and we got to demo their software, and we've been working with Peter and Pirros and our account manager Talar for about a year now, actually, and it's been really cool. The part for us and for our firm that we felt like this provided the most value was not. It's a great way to view your details, which it is, but more so it's that knowledge feedback loop that Peter was just alluding to. And so we know people are going to go looking for an older project, and they're going to say, they're going to have a project manager or a lead architect say, hey, look at how we detailed this metal panel on this building that we did 5 years ago. We know they're going to go looking for it. They're going to hopefully find the Revit file, hopefully find a PDF of it, but more hopefully the information that they find is up to date, which who knows, and they're going to open it up, and then they're going to have to draw that from scratch in their Revit file, or they're going to have to upgrade a Revit file. So what this does is it kind of closes that feedback loop for us, and so people can search the projects that we've uploaded here. So there is a little bit of curating that we do, and they can find a project that they're looking for, and they can find the detail that's close to what they need. And we constantly remind our folks that this gets you, and I'm averaging here, but 70% closer to the finish line. You still have to do your job as an architect or your job as an engineer and adjust that detail as it is appropriate for your project, especially for live details. We do have our typical details, which are standard, that typically don't need much adjusting, and that gets you 99% to the finish line. You should still, always double check that. So that's kind of where we were really wowed by this, is that feedback loop, closing that feedback loop. And what I think we've kind of glossed over here is the ease of use of this. So you just upload your Revit file, and it extracts all of the details from that Revit file, and then and then categorizes them automatically. There is very little manual work that I have to do as a BIM manager to extract those details. So is my screen being shared right now?
Yeah, so if I could briefly add something.
Yeah.
I remember someone would tell me, go search in that project that we made 10 years ago or 5 years ago. Right. Then you open the product, it's an old Revit file. It takes like 1 hour to update, and there are missing links. So maybe the detail is part of it is not even there. So you're just struggling to find the links as well, and you waste just so much time trying to find the old stuff. So the idea here is just upload all your projects, and you get access to a cloud library of old details that you can see instantly instead of trying to track the old file somewhere.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I mean, I think, and the other thing that is, different project managers or different teams working on it, they store files in a different folder structure in the project folder, and so you're having to search and find it. And I mean, you could easily spend 2 hours looking for a PDF. I mean, it could be that laborious. And so yeah, that is what's great about this. And like I said, since we're multidisciplinary, we often have 5 or 6 models all linked together, so the upgrade process for that takes quite a bit of time, and so that can really add up, especially if you need one detail and you think you got it, then you need to go back and get another one, and it really can be quite complicated.
All right, so people are asking, not seeing Xander screens. We'll get there. We haven't shown anything too crazy right now. So let's move to your screen.
Okay.
There you go. So now we can see your screen.
Great. So this is the online part of Pirros, and so this is where the library is. What we've done in our firm is we tag every detail with the discipline that it is associated with to help sort that. And there's some terminology within our firm that I will use on this during this conversation here. So when I say typical detail or standard detail, those are the same thing. Pirros calls it typical details. Our firm calls it standard details. These are our vetted details. These are the ones that are drafting views. They really should not change that much from project to project. And if they do, it's just being customized for that particular project. So that's the difference between that, and that's why you're seeing that category in this tag right here. So you can search by detail type as well. So the drafting views, legends, schedules, it will upload all of that stuff. And then if you want project number or project name and code cycle, we go by market sector as well. So we like that field because we do a wide variety of work across many different market sectors. So from federal to industrial to schools and education. So it helps us sort what we're looking for. And then location as well is another field. And these are all customizable. This is what we've selected. So for example, if you want to search for, let's see, roof curb, I'm going to search every detail that I have that has roof curb in it. And you can see these, the tags here have adjusted the count here because that's what it's returned. And so, I could sort by only architecture. And these are the details that come back with roof curb. So what it's searching, it's searching a lot of different fields within that Revit detail. So it's searching the view name, the title on sheet, and it's actually searching within the view. So it's searching the text that's in the view, and that can be Revit text, or it can be a keynote, or it can be a tag. So it's all sort of, it's really smart in how it's finding and returning these results.
Yeah, that was something that Peter was telling me about the product, how it kind of removes the need for super smart tagging. So you still have tags, but the search is really goes through all the text nodes, and this is really quite good, right?
Yeah, and what Talar, our account manager, has taught us is that what it's showing right here is it's actually created a PDF of that view that's on the sheet. And so you're seeing what was actually issued, which is great. It doesn't necessarily mean that's what you're going to import into Revit. If it's a drafting view, you'll get all of that stuff. You only get to bring the 2D stuff into Revit. So if you have a 3D element that's being shown in a detail here, that you'll see it here in this thumbnail, but it won't actually be imported into Revit, which is understandable, and that's fine. That's, again, it goes back to the point that we tell our folks, which is, the point of this is to get you 70% closer to the finish line. And so I could select this right here, and I could stage for download, and then it's going to tell you how to bring it into Revit. So I can actually do that process really quick right now. So I just have just a template project here, and let me go to Pirros, and I will stage for downloads here, and I'm going to bring in that detail that I just selected. And we tell our folks to keep this checkbox checked. And what this is going to do, you guys will see it here. It's going to create a new view category up here that says Pirros, and it's going to put that detail in that view category. And this is another quality control measure, quality assurance measure that we have implemented within our firm. Uh-oh. I don't know what just happened there. We'll try a different detail.
So the process you're doing is you're all on the web page. Stage for download is basically mean that you prepared you put the detail in a little box that's ready to be loaded into Revit.
Right. It basically puts it like in a little cart that you can. It's like your checkout cart, and then you go to Revit, and then you get to pull it into Revit from there. It's different from stashes, and stashes are really cool. I'm going to touch on that really quickly. The stashes are like little collections of details, and there's a lot of opportunity with this feature. I'm going to go to them right here. So these are some stashes that we've created, that I've created in my use here. So storefront details, standing seam curb is another detail right here. You can also have firm stashes. So these are the user stashes, which are right here, are available only to me and my user. That's it. I can share them with other users, and then they become a shared stash, and they're only that other user and I can see it. But if I create a firm stash, anybody within my organization will be able to see this. So we created one for hollow metal door details, and so all of our hollow metal door details are in here. It's a very quick way to be able to find specific details. One use case for this is we'll have a senior architect come in here, and they'll collect a bunch of details that they want, that they know are applicable for the project, and they'll create a stash, and then they'll share it with a more junior person that's on the team, and then the junior person will download those, insert them into Revit, and then cartoon them out on the sheet. And so it saves the senior person a little bit of time, and they're able to use their knowledge where it's most applicable, which is trying to find the appropriate details for the project. And then the more junior person has an opportunity to learn, so they get to see what details got selected, and then they have to figure out, how am I going to cartoon this out in the set? Like, what's the best layout for this within my sheet, which is a really neat workflow.
Do you get good usage from the older, more senior architects who are experienced with detailing, of actually using the tool and annotating and so on?
Yes, yeah, actually we do.
Okay, nice.
Obviously, some folks are a little bit more
old school,
embracing of new technology than other folks. That's probably true across the board. But yeah, we definitely get some folks that really found that feature to be exciting.
Nice.
Yeah, what I'll add to that is that's a big part of our platform, is bridging that gap between the senior staff who maybe hasn't gotten to Revit at all, right? And that's why every single piece of content you see in our platform has both the PDF and the RVT file. You can get the nice pretty preview, you can zoom in on it, and you can download that PDF. So even within that stash that Xander was showing, there's a button to share it. There's a button to just export it all to PDF if you wanted to. Obviously, there's a button to download it into Revit. And even within every detail, I'll go into this when I'm sharing my screen, you can actually add comments and markups within the platform itself, so people can add their input. Senior staff who don't even get into Revit can just come to Pirros, add their input on, hey, I think this detail needs to be updated or fixed, or I think we should add this this should be put through the vetting process and put into the library. So big part of our platform is bridging that gap for sure.
There's a lot of questions, so I'm wondering if we could take a few of them, or wait until the end. What do you think?
Yeah, let's take a few questions now, and then I have another workflow that I'd like to talk about.
Okay.
I don't think Peter is even aware of this next workflow.
So we kind of
Talar was very impressed with it. So yeah, we'll talk about that one after these questions for sure.
Yeah, okay. From Karina, how do you gather newer details from projects to add to Pirros to have a constantly updated library?
How do we get new details from projects?
Yeah, well, we talked about the old details. What if you have new stuff, update the details, and so on?
So I can talk about the way our firm has implemented it. And I think every firm should probably figure out the best, how they want to use this, what the end goal is, what they're trying to achieve, and then kind of work backwards from there. So our goal here is to put vetted details up here from all the projects that we've worked on. I should correct that. From the projects that we want to reference. And we find ourselves referencing a lot. So we don't put every project up here. We put projects that are frequently being referenced by teams. So there is a little bit of a request that goes into that. So when a team's saying, hey, we're about to do a new recreation center, we just did this somewhere and it was really good. We think we're going to be detailing it in a very similar manner. Can you put that project up here? And then we put it up there. We only upload projects that have ideally they're record sets, record drawings that get uploaded to here. So it would be the record model that gets put up here. However, with construction for some projects taking many years, we still kind of have conceded and we've said we'll do the bid set. So at that point, it's out on the street, it's out for bid. Those are, we consider them vetted details at that point. And so that's what we put up here. So we just had a project that went to bid a few days ago, and we put that up here. So we've also had a project that just started, and they said, hey, we need this project. It was like Revit 2012 or something. I mean, it was a very, very old version.
Yeah.
So they said, we need this project. And so we found it and we upgraded it and got it up here.
I can add a little bit.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
To that one, because I think there's almost like two parts of that question. One is, how do you get the details physically into the platform, and two, how, you know, there's one type of vetting of like, hey, we trust all the details in our projects. They're kind of vetted from our QA/QC team, but then there's almost like a second vetting process before a detail enters what would traditionally be a detail library. And so that's like what the 458 details you're seeing here. You know, Clark Nexsen has gone through almost like a second pass and made sure that those are cleaned up and vetted. I'll get more into this when I get into my demo, but the thought process here is, let's get your details up here efficiently. Let's just upload your projects. And then in the management tab up right, there's a lot of tooling there where we can figure out which details from those projects we should elevate to that, almost that second level of vetting, where we're double checking, making sure those are correct before putting into the typical detail or standard detail section of our platform. So getting the details in on automated feedback loop, doing that second pass. We obviously are not going to do a second vetting process with every single detail you guys ever produce. So let's figure out which details are being used the most, which are highest priority to put through that second vetting process. And that's what our platform could help do, which I'll share when I go through my demo.
Okay, a couple of other ones. Yeah, go ahead, Xander.
Well, I want to talk a little bit more about this, because there may be a situation for some of the folks that are listening that they find themselves in where they don't even have their details pulled together yet, right? They just know they've got projects with good details in them. And so this is the workflow that I wanted to talk about, and I think now is an appropriate time to talk about it. So we're actually going to be using this software in reverse to do that. So we're kind of pleased with ourselves for coming up with this. So what we're going to do is they've identified 10 projects for this one discipline within our firm, where they know these 10 projects have like most of the details that they could ever use. So they're going to put all 10 of those projects into this. They're going to upload the Revit. So they're going to upload the Revit file. It's going to extract the details, and then we're going to tag them in a certain way so they can sort them. And then they're going to go through them, and they are going to mark them up. They're going to figure out exactly what they need to keep, what they need to delete, do all that. So then they're going to create kind of a library within here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to delete all those projects out of here, because what those details are going to do is they're going to become the typical details for that discipline. And so then what they're going to do is they're going to take a blank template file, project template file for their discipline, and they're going to insert all of those details into that template file from here. And then we're going to delete everything from their discipline out of Pirros. And then we're going to take our template file and upload it as their typical details. And there's a ID number that gets associated, a parameter that gets associated with each detail. So if that detail ends up changing, it will notify anybody who's used that detail. And so we find that workflow to be valuable only for our typical details. We don't think that it's appropriate within how we work if you've pulled a detail from a project, that anybody who's used that detail gets notified when that changes, because typically that's where you're really at that 70% starting point. Those typical details are going to get you much closer to the finish line, and you should really be notified if something's changed with that. Likely it's something that's a code related issue, and you should really know about that.
So what you're saying is that there's a notification system. That's something that UNIFI or others doesn't have, to my knowledge. No. If you have a typical detail, you upload it to a project, you make some changes to it, it means all users on the other projects will get notified, or there's an option that you can activate. Hey, there's a new version of that typical detail that's been uploaded.
Yeah, so you'll get an email notification saying that detail has been changed.
And then you can say,
you can choose
I accept the change, or no, I
want
to keep the old one, because it might depend on one or the other project, right?
Yeah.
All right. I don't know if we should keep going. Like, there's a lot of really good questions that...
Yeah, let's do some more questions. I'll stop sharing my screen.
That you can keep it actually, else it's gonna
Okay.
mess up my. But
Okay.
I can go back to the
I can
cameras.
share too.
Just don't share both at the same time. It's gonna mess it up. From Thomas, does the categorization also work with other languages like German? Do you have many languages or plan to do so?
Yeah, so we have a bunch of French speaking companies compatible with French Revit. In terms of like the top banners, the details, project stashes, management, that'll be in English, but those side parameters, those are all customizable, so you can put them in German. Searching through the actual details, it's all your content, so it'll work with German. We actually have a firm in Japan that is using it and searching in Japanese. And so, yeah, absolutely, it works with other languages. It's just the top ribbon will be in English.
All right, so there's a couple of questions that people mentioned that I should ask. What percentage of users have licenses? Is it 100% or you do pick and choose? So how does the licensing works?
Yeah, I would say within a firm, uh, we recommend everyone who's involved in the detailing process should probably have access to this platform, right? This is like your knowledge hub. We consider it almost like a knowledge bank for detailing. Whenever anyone needs to detail, they need to copy and paste a standard detail. They need to find a reference of a complicated, live, modeled, project specific detail. We want you to come to Pirros and find what you need. And that doesn't necessarily mean copying and paste it into your project. It could just be referencing the PDF, seeing how a detail came together. So, if you're a part of the BIM team and you're just like copying and pasting a lot of details and moving details in, obviously you need a license. But even if you're maybe more junior staff or maybe higher level and you just want to kind of reference the wealth of information that your firm has, put into their details, having a license is also useful.
One from Isan. How have you included or incorporated details from suppliers?
For manufacturers.
Yeah, I guess do you have kind of a recommended the general library that the firms can use, or for now it's all custom details provided by the firms themselves?
All custom details. We actually used to do a little bit of that, but focus on a different way. A lot of these manufacturers still have it in AutoCAD. Also, you likely want to modify those details after you get it from the manufacturer, kind of tweak it to your standards. So again, we've made it easy to, once you've Revitized it and modified it to your standards, then we make it really easy to push up to our platform and label that that's associated with that specific manufacturer. But we're not hosting details like directly from the manufacturer's website.
Yeah, okay. I'm keeping an eye. There's other really good questions. Okay, let's take a last one, then we can keep it going. From a Bonux, what would you say is the main advantage of Pirros or UNIFI? Well, we've talked about it. I guess is it the idea of the whole collection of details versus the only the curated ones?
Yeah, again, if you were to summarize like one main goal, it's like we don't want people going to a bunch of different places for detailing anymore. So what we see with every firm that has UNIFI or any content management system, yeah, for our standard details, if the detail it falls within that set that we've curated within our content management system, great, I can grab it from there. But for all those more project specific, unique details, new details, details that just haven't made it through that vetting process, people are going to all these different places, personal stashes, past projects, all over the place, right? And so we want everything to start and end up in one place. So, and then I'll get more into this. Maybe it's worth sharing my screen, Nick, because I can kind of answer the question
Yeah,
with showing. Yeah.
Yeah, if Xander, you can stop the sharing first.
Yep.
Yeah. Then and while that's loading, we've got a question from Tori as well. Can you share costs? So how can you find how much does it cost per user and so on?
Yeah, so we can, absolutely share costs and hop on a meeting to get you guys more exact quotes. It's user based. As you get more users, it gets cheaper per user. Depending on how many users you need, it can be anywhere between, $15 to $30 per user per month. If you get much larger license count, it's more enterprise type packaging. So there's not like an exact price per user that I can share. It depends on where you fall and how many people you need to give access to it. But that's the rough ballpark.
And just a quick one before we move to your screen. Someone is asking if there's an offline version of Pirros, or you have to be connected to kind of load details or extract them.
It's all cloud based.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
Let's move to your screen.
Yeah. So again, within UNIFI, Content Catalog, Avail, any of these other content management systems, we're looking for a standard detail. I need a door head detail. You can, search within your content management system. You find your standard detail. You download into your project. Great. Now, obviously, there's some advantages to our platform, even within just your standard details. Nice, pretty preview, right? Zoomable preview. Search engine's a little bit more enhanced. Detail is linked automatically to the sheet as well, which is sometimes beneficial. So you're one click away from the sheet. But as a whole, referencing the set of standard details, not drastically different. Where it is drastically different is when I'm searching for something more project specific, right? I need a wood PLN ceiling system. Maybe for whatever reason that's not in your typical library. This is where you start asking your colleagues, digging through past projects, doing a Google search, redesigning something that's already been done. Within our platform, we can toggle to this other section of our platform where it's going to search through your projects for you. You can fall back on these projects. And so you don't have to go to other places. So it not only really helps the detail production process, people can find the details more reliably, more efficiently if it's not in the library, but then this also creates a controlled environment so we can set the unvetted section to put guardrails up. If you want to set your projects to reference only, maybe more junior users you don't trust would have to request permission to grab details from the unvetted section, versus if you didn't have the details in here, anyone can grab a detail from a past project and you have no control or insight on when it's happening. And then also this creates a feedback loop to figure out which details we should add to the typical library, right? And so if you notice that people keep searching wood P&L ceiling system and no typical details are showing up, but a bunch of project details are showing up, maybe that's a sign. If this search keeps happening, hey, we should add some of these details to that typical library so they have a vetted and approved version to take from. Maybe they just notice that a couple of project details are being viewed a lot. Maybe those project details are being requested for download or actually downloaded into their projects. That provides it, again, feedback loop to be like, oh, we should add these, put this detail through the vetting process, add it to our typical library so it's vetted and approved. And you can see some of the analytics here. So again, high level difference between our platform, like the two big value adds are, one, finding details that haven't made it into your library yet, and two, creating this feedback loop and streamlining the process to actually vet and approve more details. Whereas with any content management system, that whole thing's going to happen outside, and you're not going to be able to get as many details vetted and approved that way.
So I see you have some stats as well. So total downloads, unique users, unique projects, where that detail is found. So that's pretty cool. I'm not sure if I.
Yeah, we're tracking the downloads.
Yeah, so you can see, well, this detail is being used in 10 unique projects. Here's the person. Is it the person who uploaded, modified the detail?
Downloaded, right? So it's like, hey, this detail keeps getting downloaded, but this is coming from past projects. This is not coming from your vetted library. This maybe should be, because it's being used a lot, maybe this should be elevated and we should add it. We should vet and approve it, make sure there's no mistakes, make sure it's in our drawing standards and Revit standards, put into that typical library. So now the next time someone searches Pirros, they're not going to see a project detail. They only see the vet and approved version because you now have a vet and approved version.
Yeah, and to me, like a really killer feature is the ability to notify the user, like we're speaking with Xander. So what happens exactly? Which detail needs to be modified? Is it any of these stands is modified and then users get notified? How does that
Yeah,
work?
I'll go through the whole process. So, what can happen, and again, this creates that feedback loop where anyone can add their feedback or input, right? So say just a project architect notices that there's a mistake on this detail. They're like, oh, this dimension should actually be 10 inches. It shouldn't be 9 inches. They can come in and without even getting into Revit, they can add their comments and feedback. So like distance to access panel should be 10 inches. They can even add a comment or a markup within the platform, right? Hey, this should be 10 inches. And this will be centralized for whoever's managing these details on the Revit side. So anyone can add their comments and markups, don't even need to get into Revit. Again, this will be centralized into our management tab, into this flag details section. Now, whoever's in charge of managing the details on the Revit side, you'll actually still keep one Revit container file with your standard details, just so you can quickly update them on the Revit side. And so whoever's managing it can see these comments and be like, oh yeah, we do want to change that in the master set of details. They'll come over to Revit, they'll go to their detail library, they'll come in here and they'll update it. And so, they're like, hey, we need to update this to 10 inches. Let's get it here. So they update that master detail. Now what they can do is just sync this file back to our platform. So they'll click the sync button right here. Our plugin will notice which details have been modified. So it's showing, hey, this detail's on this sheet. So let's update both the detail and the sheet. And we can say changed access panel location dimension to 10 inches, right? And then they'll submit this. This will directly override the detail within our platform. We'll track the version history, which I'll show you in a second. And then, as Xander was mentioning, anyone who's downloaded this detail recently, maybe they downloaded it into a project 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, they will get notified that this detail has been updated through a email notification and an in-app notification. And then they will be able to, that email will have a link that'll take them directly to this detail. They'll be able to see, oh yeah, this was updated by, whoever on this date. This was why it was updated. And then they can re-download that into their project. When they re-download that into their project, the plugin will note that they've already downloaded it into their project. And so when they, say this is a project now that we're looking at, when we re-download it in, you'll have the ability to directly override that detail within Revit. So when I click here, it's going to say duplicate detail detected, and I can directly replace it. You won't have to replace it on a sheet, relink anything. Or if you want to download it as a new detail or skip the detail, you also have that option.
Cool. We have lots of questions waiting to be answered. So are there some more features? Maybe at this point we should get it on and mention other things you wanted to, or if Xander has anything else to mention, and then
I would say that the analytics are really helpful under the management tab. So as a BIM manager, it's really nice to see how it's being used across the firm, what projects are using it, and identifying the user as well is really good. So you can see which people maybe you want to reach out to make sure that they have everything that they need, and that count changes and it flows with kind of our flow of work. So we have enough licenses to kind of keep people to give out when projects are in late design development and all of CDs. That's when we see people using this. And so that's how we manage our license count as well. And then working with Talar, she's able to give us even more detailed analytics that help us with our rollout. And so she doesn't tell us how to work at all, but she gives us some tips and tricks on to kind of helping improving the numbers and what she expects to see. So what users to reach out to, what users not to reach out to, the count of our library as well. So what's a good amount of details to have? There can be too many, so it becomes overwhelming. But if you don't have enough, people aren't going to use it as a resource either. So kind of best practices like that.
And Xander, tell me, what percentage of Revit users at your firm have a license to Pirros?
Currently, we are about at 30% of our users are using Pirros, and that changes. We'll move those licenses around based off of where people are in their project. So if George today is in schematic design, I'll probably take the license away from him and assign it to somebody else that's in. So it's a very fluid number.
Yeah, we have so many good questions. From SMU, where we haven't talked much about that. What about system section that shows all the facade and reference to individual details? So can we talk about live details versus drafting views? How do you deal? How do you extract live views? What actually happens to part of the detail that are made with 3D elements from the model?
Absolutely. Well, I'll go a little bit into the upload just in a little bit more depth. Upload your library or your projects. If it's a locally saved model, You just drag and drop that Revit model into the platform. That's all you need to do. You specify the project name and number, and you click upload. If your project's on BIM 360 or ECC, it's even easier. We have a direct integration with BIM 360 and ECC. So you just select the model directly from ACC. It'll auto-populate the project name and number from ACC. So it's actually a new feature that we rolled out recently. And then you just click upload. What happens from here, if you're uploading a project, every single drafting view, live detail view, legend, and schedule that is on a sheet within that model will be pushed up to our platform. Again, both the PDF and the RVT file, both the detail and the sheet that it was on, everything gets linked together. All the reference details get linked together. Everything comes in a searchable format, right? We don't have to add metadata tags because it's more like a Google search across your details, searching through the text, view name, sheet name, all that stuff. And then a big part, again, automatically groups all the duplicate and similar details. So if there's a bunch of typical details in these projects, those will be hidden behind your master typical details. So those won't surface. And so this allows us to, instead of just dumping a bunch of projects into, the system and there just being so much duplicate content and it's a mess, it's going to automatically group together those similar duplicate details through our AI. And so that also, and I'll get into the live details in a second, but wanted to quickly touch on this feature. This also is really helpful for figuring out which details we should add in the library. There's not just the analytics, but we have the Pirros suggestions where it's grouping together similar duplicate details and saying, hey, this detail is being used on a lot of projects, on 10 of the 100 projects that you've used. It's comparing it to your vetted library, saying there's not a version of this detail in your vetted library. So currently, one architect's going to this project, another user is going to a different project, grabbing a different version of that detail. Let's pick the version we think is the best, get it up to date in our drawing standards, Revit standards, make sure it's cleaned up and put it into the typical library. And that's the only version of that detailing condition people will see going forward when they search Pirros. And then kind of going into how it works with live details. Yeah, again, a big part of our platform is that knowledge bank component, right? So a lot of times people don't even download details from our platform. They're just coming in and seeing how that detail came together. And so they can go to a specific project, they can reference a live detail. The PDF will show them everything, right? Both 2D and 3D elements. This is what Xander was talking about before. And again, this is just a good design guide. Okay, this is how this detail came together. Now, if you do want to reuse part of this detail on a new project, you can download this into your project. We'll convert this into a drafting view and we'll just take the 2D elements. The 3D elements are specific to that old project. We'll leave those behind, right? You don't want to bring those in anyways. And so I'll show you right here. It'll bring in just the 2D elements and then you can copy and paste that onto a new live section cut, the 2D elements onto your new live section cut, or you can fill out those missing pieces to fully convert that into a drafting view. What's also great, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, so when you upload a live detail, like the 3D parts won't show up, but the other parts, the drafting views will show up.
In the Revit side, right? So you can kind of see this detail here.
But on the PDF, on the cloud, you see everything.
The metal deck, the ceiling, that's 3D specific to that project. We don't want to bring in those 3D elements and clutter your new Revit model, right? You've already modeled your building separately. And so we also don't want to decide where to cut that live section in your model either. So we can help you get the 2D stuff, the stuff that can be copied and pasted into your model really quickly. And then you can copy and paste that onto a new live section cut that you have cut.
So how would you deal with, let's say that you have like the problem with kind of 10 years old detail? Sometimes like it's kind of old line style, old detail item, they're outdated, old patterns. So how would you kind of try to fix it? Do you upload to a new project? You kind of swap with new elements and upload it back to the platform?
Yeah, you can utilize these Revit parameters. So you can label, hey, all these projects that we,
nice, yeah,
designed pre-2017, they're going to be in old Revit standards. They're going to be add line types. They're not going to be in components.
So that's a tag, like old standards, new standards, and so on. Okay.
Exactly. These tags are really easy to implement on the project level, right? We're not implementing them on a detail level. This is where our customer success team can help input this information. But you can, one, label it, right? But two, you can, again, set these older projects to reference only. And so what that means is that, if this is set to reference only, users with a certain level of permission won't be able to actually download that detail into their project. They'll be forced to take details from newer projects with the correct Revit standards and components, or will be forced to take details from your detail library. And so that's where you can control what is being brought in and what project details are being used. If they do find a detail from one of those projects and they want to use that detail, they're like, hey, there's no other detail in any other projects in our typical library, but this is exactly what I need, then they can request that detail to be downloaded, and their project manager, whoever has the ability to grant them permission, can accept that request so that they can download it. And yeah, what some firms do is they'll download the individual detail from that before putting it into their project so they can clean it up their line types and components.
Yeah. And then part of our firm's software stack is we also use Guardian as well. That helps with that, as with some of the rules that we can set up for projects.
Oh,
yeah, we recommend Guardian.
Yeah, does that mean that you can, if you have the old details, it will automatically convert the old line style to the new ones?
Yeah, we've set up some rules to do that. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, big proponent of Guardian, works really well with our software for that issue, specifically of old line types, converting them to your new line types, all that stuff.
All right. So did you have any more, or we can move to the questions? We've got a boatload of questions to answer.
We can go to the questions.
All right. Let's do the questions. Okay. Let's see. JR asks, what gets uploaded to the cloud? The PDFs only, or also the Revit models?
It's the PDF. So every detail that you see here, we're seeing the .pdf file of the detail. And then on the back end, there's this exact detail. There's a .rbt file with just this drafting view or just that detail view. So you can quickly download into a project. And you probably saw it earlier when you download a detail into a new project, even if it is in an earlier version of Revit, that upgrade time is so quick because we've already segmented it into one drafting view. So you don't ever have to upgrade a huge model or open up a huge model anymore. You can just quickly pull it into your project. It's a split second to upgrade that detail. But yeah, every detail that you see here, both a .pdf and .rbt file.
Yeah, people are asking also what happens in terms of version. So initial upload is Revit version dependent, backward compatibility. I assume not. That's not standard with Revit.
So, and Xander can maybe speak to this, but what we recommend, this is what our customer success team recommends, is you keep your library and your base version of Revit, whatever your earliest active Revit project is in right now. So if you have an active project in 21, keep your details in your base 21 version. And then all the projects that get uploaded will be upgraded. If they're before 21, they'll be upgraded to 21. If they're newer, they will come in as that version, right? A 23 version or a 24 version. And that is a issue that we hear sometimes, right? Hey, I found a detail. I got guided to this project. I found the detail that is what I need, but it's in Revit 24, but I'm working in 23 and you can't use that detail from that project. But we have a kind of a unique workaround here. Obviously, we don't make Revit backwards compatible, but what you can do is you can click in, again, we're automatically grouping together similar and duplicate details. So you can click into the duplicate ones and maybe, you found that 23 version, but then you can click here and you can find a 21 version, download it into your project. Or if there's not a version that's close enough, like within an 85% match, you can filter down to the compatible versions of Revit and then do a quick search again. So like within the normal workflow, you're not going to go digging through another project to find that same detail. You'll probably redraft it. But because it's so easy to find stuff within our platform, let's just filter down the compatible versions of Revit to a quick search. You'll likely be able to find something very, very close in a compatible version of Revit. Xander, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add there.
Yeah, that was really good. I mean, I think we kind of glanced over this, but that stacking of the details, like what you have, that second detail right there, the A1, this is one of our favorite features about the software is it'll take the standard detail, the typical detail, and put it first, and then it'll find every project that has something that's close to that and put it in there. So there might be some slight nuances, and you can see the differences between the details here, but it is saying these are close enough that this is pretty much the same detail. It's been customized for these projects, but it all came from this one originally. And we find that to be very helpful because sometimes it will get us even closer to the finish line for that detail.
All right, we've got another question about privacy. What's the copyright policy knowing users will upload their Revit files and details on a cloud platform. Also asking, with files being uploaded on a web-based platform, how to guarantee confidentiality.
Yeah, absolutely. It is all, every firm's database is siloed. We're not sharing any details. Every firm retains full ownership of all the information that gets uploaded to the platform. It's their proprietary information. If they wake up one day and just want to wipe their server, they can. They have full discretion on how they, you know, uh, who has access to these details. In terms of data security, we have our SOC 2 Type 2 certification. We went through a 6-month auditing process last year to get that certification, highest level of cloud-based data security compliance. So yeah, we're not training any AI models on this. No data is being trained here. It's all your proprietary information. You guys have complete ownership over it, and no one else has access to it.
Okay, let's see what else we have. We already asked about it. Okay, I think we did most of it. Breaking Bren asks, you mentioned that model elements and tags are not copied into these Pirros details. What would the Pirros detailing workflow be for someone who uses the model and tags for the majority of their details? So I guess that's the workflow. You would just have to add the context back of the walls and so on, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. I mean, like if you're doing mostly live modeled elements, right, then you're probably cutting a bunch of new details in your new project anyway. So we don't want to download in the 3D stuff because you're going to cut a new live model and you want to reference it your new model. So that's what you're going to be doing. And we have some firms that have bought this software specifically because they do mostly live detailing, and there's no other way to kind of centralize that information. All of those details have to be siloed between projects because you can't put that in a container file, Revit container file, or in a content management system. And so the workflow here, I'd say first and foremost, it's people just seeing how the details have come together and using this as a knowledge bank, referencing these live details, and then makes it really easy. If you do find a very similar detail, I can just one click grab all of those components rather than having to find, 8 of the different components within my content management system. We already have the 8 within this detail here. Let me just grab them all in one go and copy and paste that onto my new live section cut, my new project.
Isan asks, is there any links to the company's Keynote files? How do you deal with Keynote? Is there any way to associate the number of a Keynote to the text or something?
Yeah, we actually we have a few firms that have, instead of text within the PDF, it'll just be a keynote number, right? And we actually have a pretty kind of unique workaround where you guys give us your keynote files, and then we can automatically associate the wording with the number to the details that have that number, so it's still searchable. And it can still search through the text in the detail, if you will, even if you don't see a text on the PDF if it's just a number. So it absolutely still works, and the search engine still works. You don't have to add tags to these details to make them searchable.
Okay, nice. So it still shows up as numbers, but you can still search it with the
it'll reference. Yeah.
JR says, this is excellent for big companies. 100% great job. I like it. For boutique-sized firms, it is best to create your own processes and workflows. So talk to me about the size of firms that typically use Pirros.
Anywhere from 15 employees to the big ones, right? If you're a 5-person shop, you probably don't detail enough that you can, and you know which projects you can go back to. But once you get larger, then we have a lot of firms that are signing up now that are 10 employees, 15 employees. And again, you can't have a dedicated person. You can't have a 10th of your staff dedicated to like managing your details. That's a big part of it. So, right, we archive your projects. Everyone has quick access to that. And then you can use our management tab to start building out a little bit of a standard detail library with pretty minimal effort. So the smaller firms get a ton of value out of our platform by being able to create this resource that previously only large firms had the bandwidth to create a very robust library. Now this enables smaller firms to create that central repository of details for their firms without too much effort.
All right, let's see what else we have. Matthew Sweeney asks, can you insert entire sheets?
Absolutely. Again, every detail that you see here is linked directly to the sheet. So I can click right here, I can view the sheet, and I can download that sheet, even if that sheet has a legend view or a detail view or anything. So downloading sheets is a really big part of it. Xander was showing before, the firm stashes. So another use case for these firm stashes is creating templates for our different projects. So maybe you have different projects and you're like, hey, I'm going to have these 4 detail sheets every time in this order of configuration. We can preset that in a firm stash on Pirros, and then it's one click to set up that project with those 4 sheets. And this allows you to get more specific templates rather than having to manage, 8 different Revit templates and have your details that way.
All right, we're getting to the bottom of the questions. Another one from Thomas. Is there a compare function to highlight differences between 2 details similar to the compare function for ACC project sheets?
Absolutely. I'm glad this was brought up because I meant to show this, but I didn't. So yeah, you can absolutely compare details. Let me go to one and show you how it works. This is a feature that we implemented semi recently. And so on any detail, let's click in here and you can see, hey, these are all similar details. So if I select 2 of these details and I click compare, these will overlay them. Now I just need to kind of manually align them, which I'll do quickly here. Now you can see them overlaid. It looks like these are pretty similar. Maybe like a little different with the text, but they're almost identical versus like if you have details that are different, they'll kind of highlight the differences between those details.
Nice. I think
you can always download this to PDF as well, overlay them in Bluebeam if you want.
Yeah, I see. I think we went. So people watching live, if I forgot to answer one of your questions, then now is the final time to ask it. So I want to ask to Xander, is there a specific feature that users were the most impressed with, or that you've seen the most usage, or that has been the most helpful to you?
Yeah. So it's gonna sound like a weird answer, but what people were most impressed with was how easy it was to get the content in here, because you just drop the Revit file in there and then it pulls everything out. And that's what I think our team was most impressed with. And to the comment about firm size, that takes a lot of work off of, well, me, to be honest, in terms of curating and managing like a container file or a full detail library. It also gave the opportunity for these to be vetted by anybody in the firm that has access to this. So that's the other feature that we really liked, was the fact that we could mark stuff up within this system and then edit it and then upload it and then have that information be shared. So those are the 2 things that we really like the most.
All right. Nice. I ask because sometimes I find that it's often small things that are kind of obvious for the creator of the apps, but that sometimes the users actually like the most. All right. So I think we went through most of the questions. Something I want to ask you, Peter. So your company is backed by Y Combinator. Can you tell me what is Y Combinator and how does it affect your company, or how helpful has it been for you?
Yeah, Y Combinator is a startup accelerator program. We went through the program a couple years ago now, a little over 2 years ago now. And so really helpful for they give a ton of advice. A ton of successful companies have gone through Y Combinator, Airbnb, a bunch of other like successful startups. And so they help you build your company, give you a bunch of advice. And then also they help you, raise money. We raised money a couple years ago that helped us build that initial team and get going. So it's been really helpful to go through that program. And if there's anybody that's thinking of starting a company, I definitely recommend applying.
Yeah, nice. Is that only is that worldwide, or is that for people in
Worldwide? Worldwide. There's so many people that are applying from all different parts of the globe. And then moving, some people move to, it is based in San Francisco. So a lot of people will move there it's a 4-month program, or they'll just do it remote. You can do the program remote as well.
All right. I think that's it. Oh, I see a final question. Let's get that one. Then we can close this off. From Scott Durkee. Can you show up the markup capability?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You come to a detail, you notice an issue, you click this flag button right here. Again, you can add any sort of comment. Um, we need to fix this detail. You can at someone, right? Maybe you know, at Xander, we need to fix this detail. Your QAQC person, and then you can also again click this little pen button right here and add any sort of comment and markup within the platform. And so this is, you know, this is a full PDF editor. It won't have your full tool set that Bluebeam has, but it's really, you know, quick and easy for quick markups. And if you need to do more in-depth markups and you want your full Bluebeam palette, you can just download to PDF. It will take the markups that you've already implemented here, and you can continue your markups.
Yeah, maybe another question. Are you working with folks doing modular? That's something we've discussed together because there's so much kind of typical details in modular. As you was showing that, I was wondering, someone could use that to annotate a detail that would be applied to like 100 projects, right?
Yeah. We aren't currently, but it's a good idea.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, just another question popped up from Lee. What new version of Revit is launched? Is there a wait time for Pirros to upgrade as well?
Nope. Currently compatible with Revit 26. I think we released that a couple weeks after they released Revit 26. So very, you know, a lot of the tooling and the software within Pirros, it's not Revit specific. So with our plugin, it's pretty easy to get it up to speed and compatible with the newest version.
All right, so let me just mention a couple of things, then we'll close this out. I forgot to mention at the beginning of the show, the next episode of BIM Pure Live, episode 100. How cool is that? It's going to be 2 weeks away from now on June 11, Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be with Christopher Parsons from Knowledge Architecture, creator of Synthesis, the internet for architects. So it's all about putting all the knowledge from your firm. In this case, in this episode, it was details, but in this case, it's knowledge, HR stuff, information about employee learning, and so on, putting it into a whole system that you can search with AI. It's going to be pretty fascinating. So that's 2 weeks away with Christopher Parsons on June 11, 3 p.m. Eastern. And also, don't forget to check out our new D5 render mini course with Andy from KPF, released on June 16. You can join the waitlist at bimpure.com/D5. All right, back to you, Peter and Xander. Any final words or things you really wanted to mention before we close this out?
I think, yeah, thanks for having us on, Nick. Would love to get in contact with any firms that, you know, need help with their detail management. If you notice that people are going back to past projects, if you need, you feel like don't have the bandwidth to build a library, or just need kind of any help, you know, we are kind of the best detailing solution out there. So definitely, you know, go to our website and we can find a time with one of our product specialists to go more in depth.
Yeah, Nicholas, thank you for having me on as well. And Peter, it's great to chat with you about this. And if anybody who's listening wants to reach out to me to kind of you know, see a little more about our setup or anything like that, I'm happy to share.
All right, that was great. Lots of great questions today. So thanks to everyone in the chat for being so active, and thanks to both of you, Peter and Xander. And meanwhile, we'll see either 2 weeks away from now with Christopher Parsons from Knowledge Architecture. All right, see you. Bye.